Welcome to our final episode of Bridging Cultures from our mini-series. We've talked about what transracial adoptees experience and how parents can support them. Now we'll turn to what happens when kids are really struggling and need residential care. Today, we'll explore how residential programs like OASIS Ascent help kids work through identity, mental health, attachment, and trauma while supporting parents through the process. Let's welcome back Reggie and Cristell to talk about this. I'm your host, Tiffany Silva Herlin, a licensed clinical social worker. Let's begin. Cristell and Reggie, thank you so much for joining us for our last episode on talking about this topic. So excited to continue the conversation. So let's dive in. We're going to be talking about how parents who have transracial adoptees may need to know when it's time to seek out residential treatment, and how residential treatment programs like OASIS can support them in helping them through their journey, through this difficult process and challenges they may be facing. So let's start with, first of all, let's take one step back and talk about why might transracial adoptees be overrepresented in residential treatment settings?
Well, I think that one reason is that because there's not a whole lot of knowledge about what's going on with these kids, what's going on in the background, and so when the behaviors start, parents are looking for places for help and for stabilization, and so when they come to a residential place like OASIS, one of the things that we're really proud of is that we're very diverse. They can go to our website and see our diversity, and we do have a lot of training that we do with our staff on various things, but one of them also is adoption, and so we feel like we do a really good job with our clients that come through who have been adopted. So
I think this also just goes back to some of the statistics again. You know, if we're looking at adoption in general, there's just an overrepresentation of adoptees in the residential setting. And then again, 70% of parents being white who are adopting, we know that it just may be that transracial adoption and families that we're working with in the residential setting.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. How can parents who maybe are listening and at that point considering residential treatment, how do they know when it's time to start looking for that? What are the signs and tells?
Well, I think, first of all, you want to look at, of course, behaviors. What is going on? Has lower levels of care failed? Have you tried outpatient therapy? And what is that done? Have they had mentors? Maybe you've done day treatment or IOPs. When they come to us, usually they're kids. We see a lot of anger. We see a lot of pushing away from parents. We see a lot of substance use, and I like to let our parents know that our kids are trying to find identity. And they're frustrated because in a lot of ways they're discouraged from that, and not just from maybe parents, but just from the world in general. And so they're just trying to find out who they are, and so parents look at residential treatment not only for their child, but also for the family.
I would say if they're at the point of looking at residential too, it's based on safety. Specifically for OASIS too, we're focusing on that stabilization to then figure out what's the best next step for the child. And so, yes, we're focusing on the transracial adoption, which is often a very huge piece once we work with these families. But I think a lot of the times when I'm working with the families, that wasn't the first thing that was brought up. It's something that now, we're starting to ask about more, or that I'm even noticing parents bring up on their own more. But the transracial adoption wasn't the first thing. It's based on, there were some struggles based on that and maybe other factors, but now it has escalated to a level that now there's no safety and we need something that's a higher level of care.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to discuss is the safety, whether it be emotional, physical, even sexual. Is there concern that parents don't feel like they have the tools and ability to keep themselves, their kids, and maybe other kids in the home safe from the behaviors and the things that are going on, right? And so stabilization is huge. And you guys, we could talk about that, but do a great job of helping with providing that safe space to stabilize and then figure out the next step. Mm-hmm. How do parents find programs like OASIS to help their kids?
Yeah. Well, there's several different ways. One of the most, I think, productive ways is to hire an educational consultant. These are people who know the industry, they know programs, they know people, they know characters who might fit well with any particular child. They know the system, and so having a parent who may be very impatient in trying to find something, may go out and just put their child in the first residential treatment center that they find, and it may not be a good fit. And so hiring an educational consultant can help them find the right place for their child and their particular behaviors that they're seeing. So I would say that would be the first step. But also there is word of mouth, get it out there, asking around, friends, neighbors, what their experience has been with this certain program. The internet is certainly another good use of knowledge for parents. But I also would say, do your work, do the interviews, interview programs. We love parents to come and visit us. We love parents who will call us and just interview us over the phone. What can we provide? So I think it's really about the parents getting out and not being in a rush to find a fit for their child.
Yeah, no, and I think like you said, one of the most efficient resources out there and helpful is an educational consultant that can help you navigate this big industry and world, especially when you're in crisis and in trauma and struggling and need a quick solution to provide safety for you and your child.
Yes,
they're going to really help you navigate it because it's a lot. Even if you do go on the internet, there's so many options and you just don't know which ones are good and which ones aren't and what's a good fit. So.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Just to add with educational consultants, when Reggie and I first presented on this topic, it was with an educational consultant, and he was great, and it was cool to see that, families that he works with and that we work with, we're going to have that at all the different levels, just as far as, it's not only the therapist that's aware of this that we need to be addressing, but just their educational consultant who's going to be with them even further than we would be just in our short-term setting with OASIS.
Shout out to Josh Doyle.
I was going to ask, is it Josh?
Yes.
Yeah, it was Josh.
He's
I love
amazing.
Josh.
He's
Yeah,
amazing.
he really is.
He helped us a great deal putting this together, like Crystal said. So yeah, big shout out to him.
Cool. Yeah, he's great. I've worked with him, and he's just fantastic to work with. How does OASIS approach issues of identity, culture, and race in therapeutic work?
Again, this is something that, may not be the first thing that is brought up, but it is something that I like that we're including when we get the kind of, short summary of a kiddo that we're having in admissions come in the week, right? Like, it's just a little description of they are adopted, and is it a transracial adoption? How has this affected them if the family has already opened up about it? And then from there, our team, Reggie and I, can continue to address it. Sometimes parents aren't ready, sometimes kids aren't ready, and sometimes there's just a mix of all of it. So it's just being aware of at what level the family is at in that, or just in their process of going through that, and continuing to have that lens as we're addressing other struggles that the kid might have, either with their anxiety or with their depression, sense of belonging, their identity, their suicidal ideation, all of that, just knowing that that may be an additional factor. And if they correct us and tell us no, that's still okay. But just being able to ask if that is a factor, or just kind of have that as background knowledge for us.
I think that's just common ethical training that every therapist should be addressing, right? To say, how does identity, culture, and race affect the issues that you're seeing with the family and the client that you have, and especially if they're transracial adopted. What training or competencies are staff given to support adoptees from diverse racial backgrounds?
First of all, I am so very proud of the makeup of our staff. Crystal mentioned this earlier. We have a great location. We're in the middle of 2 colleges, and we can draw from them. And our staff are amazing. But in terms of training, we do training twice a week. On different shifts, and we teach them a number of things in terms of how to interact with our clients, what to look for. We talk about trauma. We talk about certain behaviors. We talk about patterns of behaviors. We talk about function of the behaviors. But in terms of adoption, we spend a lot of time talking about how these behaviors may come from a different area than what we think. So what an oppositional kid might look like on paper, there may be a lot of stuff going on in the background in terms of his adoption. And so we want to make sure that we don't that we give our clients, our staff, the tools to work with, and that's just talking to them, having open door policies. We have chats that they chat back and forth with all the therapists, and they know that they can come to us if they have a question, a concern about a kid, especially a kid who's been adopted, and the behaviors that they're seeing.
I love that you guys have a diverse team and with staff and also therapists. A study by Donaldson Adoption Institute found that less than 25% of clinicians nationally are considered adoption competent, which I would say is true. We work with so many adopted families, yet not all of us, even as therapists, are trained on this. And I've been a therapist for a number of years, and just even diving into this topic with both of you has really taught me so many things that I probably could have known and should have known, as I was working with so many families. So just becoming more aware, and I love that we're having this conversation to open the door for more discussions like this in education for people, whether you're a therapist or a family or parents, it doesn't matter. What other training resources that you might want to have listeners be aware of that programs like OASIS might utilize?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. When we were putting this together, Crystal and I and Josh, we were referred to the Centers for Adoption Support and Education case. Going to their website, I was amazed at the vast resources that they have. They brought together the best thinkers in child welfare, adoption, and lived experiences. They brought them together and created a curriculum for training competency in adoption. And I would encourage any therapist who is around transracial adoptions or adoptions in general to take this course. They also have a course that's called TAC training for adoption competency, and that is a 3-week. No, that has 3 levels. It has the first level is for 1 and 2 year master's program students. The second one is postmasters, and the third one is six to 10 years plus in the industry. And in each one of those levels, there are a lot of information for therapists to learn about adoption and transracial adoptions. The TAC training, the TAC training has also 12 modules. It's a more intense kind of program. It's a once a week, and it goes for something like 9 or 10 months. And you have to be really committed to it because it's pretty time consuming. But the information and the resources that you learn from this training is invaluable, and you can pass this on to parents as well. There's also there's a section there for just general knowledge about adoptions, and so I would encourage therapists, parents, and anyone who wants to learn to go to that website, CASE, CASE, and see if there's something that you can take from it.
As we're talking about this, we know it's a lot to take in, just even initial conversations about it. And so I think it's great that these training programs that we have found, they really do know that. And so that's why they have the different levels, I think. Mm-hmm. Just knowing that, it may be an introductory course for students or maybe new clinicians, and then so on as they get to gain their own experience. There's just more and more that they can take on from there. But they're not going to be overwhelmed right away. They can kind of take it at their own pace. And I believe they provide the trainings in person and online, so there's some flexibility there.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are a lot of great resources. There's some we haven't even mentioned, but if you're looking for a competent therapist, you want to see what they may be trained in. Mm-hmm. Not only have experience with it, but also training. And there's various
and I would add that when you do the TAC training, because it's so detailed and time consuming, it's almost like EMDR. Cristell went through EMDR not too long ago, and it's pretty time consuming, mm-hmm. right? At the end of the year training here, you get a certificate that identifies you as a adoption competent therapist, and so that's something that any program or yourself can actually market yourself as someone who's competent in adoptions.
And going through the training, there's a component of having consultation specifically for that, just as we would, once we're becoming fully licensed. But now specifically for this area, they have that as part of the training, and the students are expected to come and share their own examples of it. And so I think that's really nice, just as, with the EMDR training that I went through, that's what we were expected to do, and just show that how we're actually practicing it and can get some guidance as we start to do it. And so they take that same approach.
Mm-hmm. Which I think is good, because mm-hmm. they just don't want some person off the street who says, hey, I think I want to learn about it, and they get halfway through it and it's like, it's not for me. Yeah. So they want you to be committed to it. This is very, very important. And, let's just face it, adoption competency is tough. And so we don't want to leave anything behind. We want to make sure that when we talk about adoption, when anybody's talking about adoption, they have all the latest resources and all the learning tools at their disposal to be able to help the families that they serve.
How does OASIS create safe space for cultural exploration and identity development?
This might be part of other programs' assignments for the kids too, but we have the kids write an autobiography when they first come in as one of their first assignments, and that goes through family history too. One of the things that I know I've done is sitting down with the clients and going through the questions. One, just to help them complete an assignment, because sometimes they need support to do that.
Of course.
But another part, just to actually process what they're putting down in their autobiography and starting to explore, what am I comfortable sharing with the community? Mm-hmm. What do I just want to process in a session? what do I feel comfortable sharing with my parents, because those all may be at different levels. And adding that part about adoption is usually a really big piece in all those different settings. Again, in their individual sessions, in group sessions, a lot of the times we'll see the kids like, you're adopted too. Oh my gosh, like I didn't know that, right? Because they just see themselves and or see each other, and they don't see the parents just as we would every week. And again, back to the family sessions, we have the kids also present their autobiographies in those. And again, that sometimes it requires some of the parent coaching of letting parents know this is their perspective, be curious, ask questions. We're going to start these discussions. It doesn't mean that you're wrong or that they have totally, different experiences. It's just their perspective, and we need to kind of bring those together. So that's one of the things that we do.
Kind of piggybacking on what Crystal was saying, that we try to celebrate holidays, cultural holidays, Cinco de Mayo, Juneteenth. Juneteenth this year, what we did was we took our clients down to a Creole restaurant. I have a friend who owns a restaurant down there, and he had them sample some Creole food. While they were eating, he talked to them about what Juneteenth was all about. They had some background because I kind of prepped them before they left, but he was able to give them some background from a different perspective. And it was more of a talking about the slaves and how in Texas they didn't know that they were free yet, and how Texas was the last part of the nation to give up slaves. And so once they found they were free, this was a point of celebration. And so what this guy did was he talked to them about that, but he also talked about, and he related to their own mental kind of slavery, being stuck in their ideas, and that they have to be a certain way, or
or even addictions, right?
The addiction, all of it, yeah, for sure. And so he just had a way of making it relevant to them, Juneteenth. So he talked about it, then he made it relevant to them, and then challenged them to say, what are you going to do about it? And so I thought that was just a great way of celebrating Juneteenth with food, and a really good discussion on Juneteenth and how it relates to them.
You might have to tell me where this restaurant is after.
Sure.
Because I would love to try it.
He would love to have you there.
That sounds fantastic. And yeah, what a great way to incorporate culture. And especially, I'm sure some of these kids could really relate to it and connect to it. So that's fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we've also been able to have a rabbi was at our program pretty consistently. So for our Jewish students and clients that we have there, it's really nice to see, sometimes maybe they weren't as involved in that before coming into residential, but then they start to see that. It's like, hey, I want to go. I want to be with my peers who I can relate to and explore this again. And that's also just like, another part that we can provide while they're there. As Reggie mentioned, we'll celebrate other holidays, and that's done throughout the whole program. We've been able to set up like, hey, we're going to celebrate this culture today, and so lunch will be a certain kind of food. In school, they'll have some kind of like history lesson on it. In groups, we'll address it in some kind of way. Sometimes it even comes down to like really fun stuff for the kids. Like I brought in Mexican candy, and that was,
so fun.
Fun to see like their reactions to it. And just to be able to explore something new, whether they related to it or not, but just kind of like, having those open discussions about that. But then that brought up other discussions of like, well, I know about me, I want to do this. Can I teach my peers about this the next time that we have group?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
How do peer relationships, mentorships, and representation matter in a residential setting?
It matters because it may be one of the first times that a child is seeing a mirror in that setting. So I have this experience that has stuck with me over time. And I'm always a little hesitant to, like, in the way of wording it, but it was just the way it was said. I was working with a mom and a daughter who, mom is white, daughter is black. And, most of the time in our residential work, we are communicating through email first if, parents may not have actually seen pictures of the team online. And that was the case with this family. So I get on the call, and it's actually a video call. So now mom gets to see me, right? And we get into a little bit of the introductory part. And then mom goes into, can I just say, I'm just so happy you're not blonde, blue-eyed with a pixie cut. And it was just, it was kind of funny to hear. And it wasn't anything bad. It was just that her daughter just hadn't had somebody who was also a person of color to help her address her mental health needs. And with this too, so it was something that I knew was important to the mom, that I later confirmed was important to the child as we continue to talk about it, that she was super excited and was telling her family members, my therapist is a Latina, and it's super cool, and I get to talk to her about these different things. And we were able to explore that. On top of that, it was also an opportunity for me to check my biases and my blind spots, because yes, I'm a person of color, but I'm not Black. And so that was something that I needed to now take and become more competent in, or just work with the rest of the team and figure out, okay, how do I best serve this family and this child, knowing that there's this additional part of her treatment that we need to address. So again, it wasn't bad intentions for mom to say it that way. It was just such a refreshing thing to see that, my child has somebody who looks similar to them in some way.
Yeah, which we talked about earlier, having that mirror is the first step to helping them realize they're not alone, and to have someone be able to hold space and relate to them. I mean, so much of the therapeutic work that we know of is when that person's able to witness and validate, and then also have other people, in group therapy settings, realizing other people have gone through what you've gone through. That's huge in the healing process, we know.
Absolutely.
So.
Just to also add, with going back to just attachment, some of our kids may struggle with this. And so in the residential setting, we know that interactions aren't just done in therapy, but it's just the day-to-day, small interactions, greetings, seeing them, or the kids seeing us interact with other kids too, and just recognizing okay, is this somebody who I can trust to then take into individual therapy or family therapy? And that's just something that, if they already are having those mirrors, maybe they're experiencing a little bit of less stress because they know they don't have to take that educator role again. It's just, okay, people understand at least parts of my identity or things that I'm going through. And so now I don't have to be tiptoeing around that once I come to sessions.
Yeah.
Love it. How can OASIS support adoptive parents while their child's in treatment?
Well, I would say that, first of all, having a connection with the therapist, being able to know that they can reach a therapist via email, phone call, that's number one. I think also parent support groups. We run a weekly parent support group. Some of it we have a curriculum, and some of it's just open mic. Let's talk about what's important to you. I've been in some of those parent support groups where they do talk about, especially the adoptive parents. They do talk about, them not having that connection that some of the other parents have because their kid is adopted. And it stimulates some really, really good conversations. And so I just think that coaching and education, support groups, and I think we just need to understand that we need to bring the parents along with their child on the journey. And because it's about helping them also learn and look at their own biases while the child's doing his work as well. And so I think that that's a big part of it is that and sometimes we use a lot of family systems theory in our work at OASIS, and it's really powerful. I know that doing some of those works when we have some really good sessions, there's not a dry eye in the group, including me. But it's that realization that parents come to where, wow, you know what? It's not hopeless. I can pick up the pieces. We can pick up the pieces, and this is what I'm willing to do, and this is what the child is willing to do. and we help them come together and realize that there is a future there.
OASIS is known for psychological evaluation. How does this play a role in helping families who have a transracial adoption?
Yeah, so again, I mean, a lot of the times when the families are coming in, it's because they're in a state of crisis, and we are focusing on reaching that stabilization. So they may come already knowing that the transracial adoption is impacting their family and their child's mental health, or they may not quite be there. And so as we do the psychological evaluations, sometimes there's that, confirmation to parents that, yes, this is something that actually impacted my child. And back to those hard conversations. Now they need to look at it, it's there. Now we can make sure that it's addressed in their ongoing treatment, whether it's still at a residential setting or going to a day program or an IOP, or just having outpatient services moving forward. It's something that they can now take and make sure that it's just addressed.
Yeah, but I think it also can speak to the attachment piece. The attachment piece in that, what does that look like? How does it play out between parents and child? The attachment piece, and what does that look like in terms of the behavior and with regard to referrals to a higher level, lower level. I'm a firm believer in that the longer a child is away from the home, the less likely, or it reduces the opportunity to form attachments. And so I like to speak to that. I mean, I like to speak to that in therapy, but I think our evaluations can really speak to that in terms of, going forward, and what does that look like, and why is it important to have parents involved every step of the way.
Yeah.
So
I love that it sounds like the evaluation helps parents weed out, like, is adoption a big factor? What is the attachment piece? Is there a parent-child relationship issue? Is there trauma involved? Like, it helps put together those puzzle pieces, right, that may be missing or in the wrong place, and see a more clear picture and way forward for the family in regards to treatment.
Yes.
What does successful reintegration look like for these youth when they leave residential care?
Well, I mean, I like to think of them using the skills and the information that they've learned from us, and going somewhere and building on that. I've had clients who have sent me graduation cards and things like that, and I share it with the rest of the team. Say, we are making a difference. Crystal's had parents call them and talk about, how much further they are now than they were before they started. Are they done working on it? No, but they recognize that things are getting better. And I think that's really what that might look like.
Yeah, part of it also looks like the kids being able to advocate for themselves and express their needs. Working through that shame and grief, still ongoing at times. They're able to just bring up those discussions and know that it's going to be welcomed by the parents as they continue to navigate that in a home setting now, not only the residential one, but actually being able to ask for what they need. Parents feeling good about being able to provide that too, and actually having some of those services set up once they actually already leave OASIS, whether it's a therapist who can be your mirror, or somebody who's just aware that that'll be a piece that they need to continue to address.
I think we talked about that earlier, of just what changes can be made at home in the environment so that there are mirrors, so that the family is embracing the culture that their adoptee comes from, things like that, so that the adoptee can feel like they belong, that they have a place, and that they're not alone. I would love if you guys could end with a success story that you've experienced personally from OASIS in working with families with transracial adoptees.
Yeah, I'll start. I used the one about the family that moved, but I have another one that's just as good with an older adoptee, and parents very well educated, both very nice people, and they came to us with their son who was, abusing substances, and who was being really disrespectful, and came to us. And one of the things that they learned in therapy is that they were slow to validate and quick to dismiss. And so anytime this young man would speak, they would say things like, that really didn't happen, or you need to turn the other cheek, or that's not important right now. Let's talk about real things. They talked about things that they really wanted to talk about versus listening to things that he felt was important. And so through our work and helping them, and just through what I've learned, is I helped the parents understand that we need to listen. And once they started listening and validating, things started to change. And here not too long ago, I got a high school graduation that this kid was graduating, and I was thrilled, and I wrote the parents back. And one of the things that they told us was that they felt that this kid coming to OASIS saved his life. And so for me, that's a big success story.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of times we hear those stories of this was their second chance, and a lot of these kids' lives were saved because of a program like OASIS and helping families integrate.
Yeah, there's a family that I think of that I worked with not too long ago. Thankfully, again, parents were actually already aware of the impact that the adoption had on their child. But child had an additional experience. He had actually wanted to talk to biological mom, and parents were happy to set that up for him. And it was really good just to know that they had done that, and it hadn't, they hadn't taken it as a rejection from him, but just, again, curiosity that he wanted to learn a little bit more about his background. Unfortunately, that didn't go well. It sounds like it, biological mom just wasn't in a place to be able to do that. And parents recognized that, and that was something that they let me know throughout their child's treatment at OASIS. And so we were able to take a really just trauma-informed approach to his treatment, just from like the grief and loss that he experienced from the adoption, but also this experience that he had just a few years before. And kiddo responded really well. We were able to just kind of go in a little bit deeper through using EMDR, actually, which we know can be really effective and also kind of indirect, but he responded really well. And so he actually was able to go home, and he was able to reach that stabilization piece, and he's actually still doing really well. I've had some communication, and it's good to hear those messages still from parents of it's been really helpful. He's still going strong, knowing that they need to have some range of tolerance of we're still going to make some mistakes, and so is our kid, and that's okay. But they were also able to set up some services for him.
What a great story to share, that parents are supportive, but yet things don't always go as planned, even if you're trying your best and being supportive. And meeting his birth mom didn't go the way they hoped, and you were able to recognize that, and they were to help him through that trauma and that grief and loss. I just love that you guys were able to come here and join us for this important conversation, and for our listeners out there searching for hope and healing, and that there are programs like OASIS that can provide a space, that can provide a safe space for transracial adoptees to process their identity and to heal. If your family is in crisis, remember you are not alone, and support is out there. For information on OASIS and resources for adoptive families, please visit them at oasisascent.com. We'll make sure we'll put that in our notes. Thank you guys so much for being part of this series and helping bridge cultures in this conversation. That's so important for so many people to hear.
Tiffany, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much for having us.